These are the municipalities of Odivelas and Lodz. They are part of the Lisbon Metro area, and together they account for about 12.5% of its population. One would assume that with such a large population, and population densities of over 5,000 people per square kilometer, along with the proximity to Lisbon, that there would be a mix of rapid transit lines running to and from them to the capital. Well, you'd be mistaken. Currently, there is only a single metro station that runs to Odivelas. From there, one must take the bus to their final destination. No other forms of rapid transit exist in this area. No light rail, no BRT, nothing. But that may soon change. The Violet Line is a quote-unquote Metro Ligeiro railway line spanning 11 kilometers and the fifth line of the Lisbon Metro, designed to improve mobility for the residents of Odivelas and Lodz by a C-shaped line running to multiple residential and commercial areas, a hospital, and the Odivelas Yellow Line station, which then rolls into Lisbon. The project hasn't rolled smoothly, however. Projects for a rail-based system in these municipalities have been studied, presented, frozen, cancelled, and adapted for a couple of decades. A project that has also attracted some opponents and questions regarding capacity and future-proofing. A public tender that has returned no company to build and maintain the system, and with a long and complicated record, is it finally this time that the project will roll ahead? Let's find out. I must first explain what I meant by quote-unquote Metro Ligeiro. Direct translation would lead you to believe this is a light metro, similar to the Vancouver SkyTrain or the Montreal REM. This is not correct, however, as in Portugal the word Metro Ligeiro equates to light rail or modern tram. This may seem odd, as the Metropolitano de Lisboa, which I will shorten to ML during the remainder of this video, doesn't operate a single line like this. All four of ML's lines, blue, yellow, green, and red, are heavy rail with high floor platforms and powered by third rail running at 750 volts DC. By comparison, the Violet Line is light rail, low floor, and powered via overhead wire. The reason for this may be attributed to costs, as light rail can run at street level much more easily than heavy rail can, thus avoiding costly viaducts or tunnels. This can be a drawback in some situations though, especially in places where you will have a lot of foot traffic and/or tight curves, which will reduce the maximum speed permitted. The plans for this line go back quite some time. I have found documents of the late 90s and early 2000s showing light rail lines spanning multiple municipalities. There have also been plans to build heavy rail on this alignment before, as an extension of the Yellow Line. Alas, these plans didn't go ahead, and now we're back with light rail. Will light rail be sufficient for this line capacity-wise? I'd say so, but some specifications worry me a bit. I'll get to that. I was able to find a lot of information about this project online, including a very short document detailing quite a good chunk of semi-technical specifications. To start with the physical aspects, the line will span about 11 kilometers and serve 17 new stations. The underground stations are Jardim da Radial, Ramada Escolas, and Jardim do Castelinho. The three stations in the trenches are Torres de Bela Vista, Ribeirada, and Odivelas, while the remaining 11 will run on the surface. The highlight connection of these lines, or at least the big ones, are Lodz Shopping at Várzea de Lodz, Odivelas Metro Station at Odivelas, and Hospital Beatriz Ângelo at, well, I think you can guess that one. There are 4 tunnels in this alignment, with the largest being situated between Torres de Bela Vista and Ribeirada, spanning just shy of 2.5 kilometers with gradients as steep as between 5 and 6%, which makes sense when you consider that this tunnel drops about 70 meters in elevation. The project will also include 2 viaducts. One is situated just after Povo de Santo Adrião and runs parallel to the Almirante Gacotin Street, as well as the A8 highway to its south. The next viaduct sits between Lodz and Várzea de Lodz, with the same highway passing below. Now about the stations, level boarding is guaranteed at all. The height of the platform is going to be 30 centimeters higher than the track level and should span about 45 meters. This is to accommodate 40-meter trains, which will be 100% low floor. The system is also fully electrified, as any system like this should be, with 750 volts DC of power being delivered via overhead wire, and it will be built to standard gauge. I could not find any information on what signaling or train control system will be used, although these details are rarely revealed to the public anyway, so it's okay. So now to timelines. This current project had its public start on July 5th, 2021, give or take, when a cooperation agreement was struck between the municipalities of Odivelas and Lodz and the Lisbon Metro. Shortly thereafter, the statutes of ML were changed to authorize them to operate light rail lines. 2 years later, the environmental review process was initiated, and the first cost overrun announced shortly after. Months later, multiple changes were made, most importantly, the suppression of 2 stations due to community opposition. In November, the project expenditure was authorized, and the public tender was launched later in March. This should have been the start of construction, but when the proposals came in, it soon became clear this wasn't going to happen. O contrato ficou deserto. The presented proposals fell into 2 camps. The proposal put forward by Master Estilo Eletricidade e Telecomunicações met the €450 million budget but did not meet all the requirements, while proposals by Motengil, SPI Batignolles Internacional, Zagop, Comsa and Ferrogrupo did meet the requirements, but were all above, in fact way above, the €450 million budget. None, therefore, met the requirements necessary to win the contract, and it was later cancelled. This delayed the project by quite some time. The government, thankfully, seeing what just went down, later announced it had increased the budget of the contract to €600 million. And with that, the public tender was relaunched for a second time on April 15th. The segment would have ended here, but as I'm writing the script, new information came out. The deadline for submitting proposals has been reached, with 4 proposals being put forward. No details are known as of yet, and the companies are mostly the same, but now with different groupings. But yeah, we have proposals. Yay! So that's the update. Now, to the criticisms. I have remained neutral for the majority of this video, but I am in favor of the Violet line, its alignment, and even its vehicle type. While I understand the reasons for why some would consider this alignment to be better served by heavy rail, I must state the project is already in its last stage before construction. Changing it now would require even more funding and going back to the drawing board. And not everything is lost. Light rail does still have quite a ways of scaling up, but it's for this reason that I worry. The defined length for the platforms is 45 meters, which is akin to what's found in the Metro Transportes do Sul in Almada, but just over half that of the Porto Metro with its 70 to 80 meter platforms. For a system like this, designed to provide mobility to neighborhoods with high population densities, I find this length completely unacceptable. The system could, and I think will, eventually run into capacity problems as the areas around it densify. In fact, there are already developments either starting construction or close to acquiring the permits necessary to build. The issue with platforms this small is that they prohibit 2-unit compositions from circulating on the line, as half the trains wouldn't fit on the platforms without expensive retrofits. But these platforms are not particularly expensive to construct if done from the get-go, so why not spare the later expense and do it now? I understand that there could be some trouble when extending a tunnel platform, but only 3 stations have this problem, as the rest are above ground or in a trench. Leaving this lengthening process for later, for when the line is already running, would create a massive disruption that would be completely unnecessary if the platforms were long to begin with. Maybe, just maybe, this could be less of an issue with shockingly high frequencies, but that doesn't appear to be on the plans either. The first announcement I read about this line mentioned some frequencies which immediately caught my eye. The article, which I unfortunately can no longer find, mentioned a peak frequency of just 7 minutes, and off-peak frequency between 10 and 15 minutes. This is not just bad, it's absolutely disastrous. The vehicles running on the line, from what I could see, have a capacity of around 300 passengers. Assuming the trains go at full capacity, and assuming peak frequency of 8 trains per hour, we would be looking at 4,800 passengers per hour. For comparison, the heavy rail vehicles that run on the rest of the Lisbon Metro can carry 6 times this amount. Even assuming they run only 1 unit rather than 2-unit consists, as they usually do, they can still carry 15,000 passengers an hour at peak frequency of trains every 4 minutes, essentially. And this isn't a, oh, but light rail has low capacity moment either, you should have known. No. For comparison, the Porto Metro, with its D-line 2-car consists, can do about 17,000 passengers per hour. That is the type of capacity you want on a high-density corridor, not whatever the Violet Line is poised to do. Assuming the best case scenario, where peak frequencies are 4 minutes, we'd be looking at 9,000 passengers per hour. While better, it's not really acceptable. This is a tiny expense. Platform sizes are not expensive. Lengthening a platform is not expensive. It's a tiny little expense that is spared at the beginning, so you can, I don't know, make the project cheaper or something, but could very well lead to massive costs in both time and money in the future. With the public tender already launched and proposals secured in the hands of the government, it's unlikely for this to change. This can be improved in the future, sure, but at a much, much higher cost. Regardless, this project is set to start construction in 2026, and it should be finished by around 2030-2031. So yeah, it looks like this project will finally go ahead, along with the rezoning of the areas adjacent to the stations. There is no doubt it will be an improvement to the residents of these communities, but this doesn't mean the project is as good as it could be. There is a part of me that would like to see this as heavy rail, but I understand this is not going to be changing anytime soon. This led me to redirect the focus very early on to, hey, let's do X little thing that will give us a massive benefit in the future, instead of, oh no, I will downvote because this project is shit because it is not absolutely perfect and I want it remade therefore. This isn't to say we, as advocates for better transit, mobility, and urbanism, need not strive for the absolute perfect solution and accept nothing else. But when things are set in stone, as they are right now, I think we should rather direct the focus to changing the little elements that could easily be implemented, but can turn an imperfect system into a good system and permit it to be excellent in the future. This is the first video I do for YouTube on this topic, so I'd like to hear your feedback in the comments on how I can improve. I speak both English and Portuguese, so you can talk with the language you're most comfortable with. I'm João Paixão, this is the Luso Urbanist, and I'll see you next time.